as I've watched young moms now, it's like the kids are ruling the situation. And if we love them, if we honor them, if we believe they are our equals, then we would do more for them. That's what they need. They need their safety. And the other thing is that parenting is not about being pals. It's not about the friendship. Parenting is about love, honor, respect, and teaching them the tools that they're going to need to survive without me. That is parenting. Will they know how to find their next best person? Will they know how to talk to them? Will they know how to negotiate with the teacher, with a principal, with their boss on their first job? Will they know how to do that? They will if we teach them in the space where they can mess up, and that's in our homes. They can mess up. That's where we should. That is honor. Honoring your kids to let them mess up. Now, do I like it? No.
Welcome to Linda's Corner, where we bring more hope, healing, and happiness to the world. My name is Linda Bjork, and today we're going to be talking about parenting teenagers. I'm delighted to welcome Karleen Savage. Karleen has been featured on MSNBC for her knowledge in hostage negotiation. She is a TEDx speaker, seasoned parent, a certified hostage and crisis negotiator, an expert in conflict resolution and negotiations, the creator of the Savage Theory of Resolution, and the author of The Confident Teen Blueprint. You can reach Karleen at her website, karleensavage.com, and I'll include a link in the show notes. Welcome, Karleen. I'm so glad that you could join with me today.
Thank you so much. Boy, that was a mouthful.
I know. And usually I try to shrink it to about 30 seconds, but with yours, I thought I really want people to know the background that you have. And what's so amazing about your expertise and your education is that the skill set that you have can be used on the world stage. And it is used in hostage negotiations. It's working with this country and this country and trying to create peace in situations where peace does not seem possible. And that same skill set you bring into a very personal level and say, and this is a skill set that we can use in our homes. And for most of us, we aren't at that world level where we are going to be called upon to say, hey, we have a hostage situation. We've got a crisis. Can you step in? But almost all of us will have a situation where we need to create peace in our homes. And so I'm so thankful that you come with this wealth of knowledge to help us bring peace into our homes, and especially regarding our teenagers, which is a challenging time. It's a challenging time for them, which in turn makes it a challenging time for parents. And so you are a seasoned parent with 7 children. Is that correct? Would you mind? Can we hear some of your personal stories? How have you used this in your home to make it a more beautiful place?
Well, first is they're beautiful people and have been since day one. It's an epic experience to be a mom and be a mom to them. I've had plenty of conflict in our life. And if you watch the TED Talk, you've learned a little bit about it, but plenty of conflict in our life that has required me, if I love, honor, and if I believe in my job's duty as a parent and as a mom, it required that I search for the answers and find things that could work. And ultimately, that's kind of what I'm doing now, is I'm sharing, when you're more than 40 years past, the start of your parenting journey, you learn a few things. And now that's what I'm doing, is I'm sharing that. And I think first and foremost is to believe your kids are epic. And if you come from a place that we use love in such a cliche way, but if we come from a place that they're epic human beings, that the responsibility is to honor and build and be responsible for all things that they learn under our watch. And you start at that place, the rest is downhill.
And isn't that crazy how easy and yet how challenging that can be. Where the first step, sometimes I think when we're hoping for parenting advice, what we want is for people to say, Karleen, will you please tell me how to step in so that I can control and manage
Mm.
and mold my child into this perfect, kind, helpful, loving, obedient human that I want them to be? And instead, it always turns right around and the finger points right back to the parent and says, how do you show up as a parent? How do you view these children that you have been entrusted with? Do
So good.
you cherish them? Do you trust them? Do you believe in them? That I love the word you use, that they're epic, that they are something amazing. And when we come with that mindset, and I loved how you said a lot of the other things just fall into place. We're able to see the big picture, and so the little things can kind of fade away.
So
And
good.
yet, let's say I'm not in that place right now. That's not where my mental is. My mental is this kid or these kids are driving me crazy. Can you help me get from point A, where I'm at, to point B, where I want to be or need to be?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head with, we get thrown into life. As I've watched young moms now, it's like the kids are ruling the situation. And if we love them, if we honor them, if we believe they are our equals, then we would do more for them, like allowing them to experience something like what you've been going through with the birth, um, letting them experience that, but holding the space to stand right next to them while they experience and suffer. In that whole experience, that's what they need. They need their safety. And the other thing is that parenting is not about being pals. It's not about the friendship. Parenting is about love, honor, respect, and teaching them the tools that they're going to need to survive without me. That is parenting. Will they know how to find their next best person? Will they know how to talk to them? Will they know how to negotiate with the teacher, with a principal, with their boss on their first job? Will they know how to do that? They will if we teach them in the space where they can mess up, and that's in our homes. They can mess up. That's where we should. That is honor. Honoring your kids to let them mess up. Now, do I like it? No. It's so uncomfortable, but allow it to happen and stand with them while it happens.
Wow. Okay. In just that short amount of time, there was so much wisdom. Let's unpack it just a little bit.
Love it.
So, parenting, what is parenting about? And you made a reference to something, an experience that you know that I recently had, and that is that one of my lovely daughters just had her first baby, and it was very, very hard. And it was beautiful to be there with her and to be able to support her. And it was also very, very hard to see her suffer and to see it take so long. And part of parenting is allowing things to happen. And I feel like one of the biggest mistakes that parents make that I see is interfering between an action and a consequence, protecting children from consequences. And I believe it is always done out of love. It is done because we don't want to see our children suffer in any way. It hurts us to see any kind of bad thing happen to them. And yet, when we step in and don't allow a consequence for a behavior, then we're teaching them. And we're teaching them bad things. And we will not always be there to step between an action and a consequence. So if you said, we can allow these mistakes, we can allow these things to happen in our homes where the consequences are smaller, then they can learn the lessons that they need to. before the consequences become drastic.
Sure.
So thank you for bringing that up. And it is painful. It's hard as a parent to, in any way, to see our kids struggle. And one of the default, another challenge that you brought up is that what we want is we want to be friends. We want to be pals. I want my children to just love me and be happy with me all the time. And yet, if I try to do that, I'm not being a parent. It doesn't mean I can't love them. Doesn't mean we can't have a great time together. But I've got to be the parent. I'm not just a pal. I'm not just a friend. That's what I think many young parents think. This is the new and improved parenting model. I'm not going to be this authority figure. I am going to be a friend and an equal. And earlier you mentioned we are treating children as equals. So how do I treat my children as equals without being my pal, buddy, and be a parent? How do I balance that?
So you might have to help me keep track of the two questions because there's two questions. One is friendship evolves with respect and honor. That's the way we make our girlfriends, our couples. When you start going out with couples, there's a respect and an honor there. Friendship with your children evolves as you respect and honor. They will feel it. They will stick with it. They will trust it. So that's first and foremost. Do you want to be a friend? Then do the right thing by them, and which is to allow them to do that. How do we treat them as equals? I'm helping to our grandson, one of our grandsons, 3 years old, lives with us. And he lives with us because mom had an incident with him that put him in an unsafe situation. The mom is amazing. Love her. Good woman. But he ended up with us. And now, after working with her to be able to spend time with her son, one of the things that we talk about is the ability to love them means you respect who they are. And so she too was like, well, what do you mean by that? And I said, trust that they're intelligent. Just because they babble, can't say words, just because they don't walk and they trip, or they can't coordinate to get on that jungle gym, or, they can't quite get in the car by themselves, whatever it is, trust that they're intelligent enough to learn. Because so often, if they can't speak, we assume they don't know. And that's a huge, huge mistake. So I have another grandson that I work with the same mom, and she has him, and he screams, he whines. That's all it is the entire time that they're together. And that's what he does. And so she holds him the whole time. And so one day I just said, she's looking at me. She's totally frustrated, exhausted, as many moms are. And oh my gosh, I can totally get it when I watch what happens. And so I said, she looked at me exasperated. I said, okay, let me do this. So all I did was put him on timeout. He fought me, and he physically was screaming, yelling, like, save me. And she just sat there and watched, and I held. The minute he was silent, I said, okay, you can get back up. And then he'd start whining and crying as soon as you lifted him up. And I said, nope, we're going back down. And so we do this. We did this for 45 minutes. Here's the thing. Are parents willing to invest in their children for 45 minutes so that they understand the expectation? Now, what's interesting is now you fast forward. I did that probably before he turned 1. And so I'm saying for probably the last 4 months. So he's 14 months now. And now when he's starting to whine, she'll say, sit on timeout. And he just sits right in the spot he's at. And he's quiet. And then when he's done, she goes, are you ready to get up? And he gets up. And my endorsement is based upon what I wrote in my book, The Overarching Philosophies, Mantras, is I always want my kids to feel loved. So afterwards, It is a habit that they come over, they get a hug, they get a kiss, they get cuddles, and then you say, okay, the whining has to stop. That is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about respect. We in our brilliant minds that we have make all the judgment on our babies, and we don't trust that what they're showing us is true. So, does your child know how to get you to nurse them? Does your child know how to get you to give them a cookie? Do they know how to tell you that they're unhappy with something? Do they stomp their feet when something doesn't go their way? They know how to communicate. Why aren't we trusting that? Why aren't we listening to that? And why aren't we talking in that space? So if you have the ability as a child to stomp your feet, you're telling me something. Then I have the ability to believe you and trust in that, and then go to you and go, what? What is it that you want me to understand? And it is amazing when we give our kids credit and we respect who they are. Epic.
Wow. So now, as I'm listening to this story and I'm trying to pinpoint what kind of principles are there, because I want to be able to duplicate this with a different situation. And so we have this little boy who is trying to get his needs met. That's the basic goal. I need this, or and beyond needs, we also have wants. So we have needs and I have wants. And so I have just a skill set I'm given from the very beginning. Children, infants have the ability to ask for what they need, and it starts with crying.
Mm-hmm.
That comes instinctively and naturally. And there are some things that seem to come a little more instinctively and reflexively, like you've mentioned stomping your feet or throwing a temper tantrum. All of these things are a way for a child to say, I have needs, I have wants. And what you did is you invested the time and said, I understand that you are trying to get your needs met and you're trying to get your wants met. And that's okay. But let's learn a new skill set of how to communicate that. And you did it. It sounds like you started at age 10 months, which is incredibly young. I wouldn't have realized that a child would be able to pick up on that at such a young age. And then to be able to have a new skill set by age 14 months to say, oh, I understand what is expected. I still have my needs. I still have my wants, but now I have a new skill set that I can use to communicate those. And I trust that you are going to respond to me, which matters. So now that I'm in that place, sometimes I'm going to forget and I'm going to go back to my own patterns. But as
Right.
you gently remind me, that's not the okay, then, oh, yeah. I know another way. I can do this. So that's
Awesome.
amazing. Thank you.
And we as adults go back to old patterns too.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but I will tell you, okay, so 10 months, the thing is that for me, and I'm going to go deep on this one, is it starts in the womb. Okay. And what I mean by that is, what is the standard sleeping pattern of newborns? What do we know? What's the standard pattern?
Is there a standard pattern? I think it's sleep whenever you want and be awake whenever you want. Is there
And
something beyond
so,
that?
so we hear a lot of stories about my child's up every 2 hours. I've got to nurse, several times during the night. I've got to do all these things and whatever. So for me, many years ago, when I started having children, I patterned them in the womb. So let me explain, and then we'll come fast forward. Is a Lamaze teacher told me once, what they do in the womb while you're pregnant with them is what they're going to do after they're born. So pay attention to that. And I thought, ooh, I like that. Okay, let's pay attention. And she said, so if they're up at 1 o'clock, you can bet that they're going to be up at 1 o'clock after they're born. It's just a pattern that they have, right? So when that happened to me, I would lay there. I wouldn't go. I wouldn't get up. When the baby woke up, I would just lay there. And pretty soon the baby would go still again. They woke up. I'm going to tell you this because it's unbelievable. but all 7 of my children have slept through the night the minute they were born. They did not wake up to be nursed. They did not wake up for any reason. They would sleep from, say, 9, 10 o'clock at night to, say, 7 in the morning. And a lot of people today, not back then, a lot of people today would go, oh my gosh, that's so dangerous. You've got to wake them up. You've got to feed them. But I also am somebody that believes they will tell you when they're hungry. They will tell you when they're soiled. They will tell you when they're uncomfortable. So trust them. They will tell you. They will get the message across because they are so innocent and so pure that they don't know anything but to tell you the truth. They don't know all the manipulations or lies or oh, I'm not going to say that because I'm conflict averse or I don't want to upset anybody. They don't know this stuff. So who they are shows up in purity, and you just believe them. And then if you nurse that as they grow in age, then you get things like 10 months old sitting on timeout and beginning to understand that. It took many attempts, and it took also a mom willing to invest the time in order to achieve that. But what it does is it builds confidence in them. They understand where their boundaries are. They understand where their freedom is. They can roam as they please because they get it. They understand, oh, when mom's on the phone, that's a trigger. That's for me to understand. Just like when I get hungry, I start crying and I get what I need.
Wow. Okay. So the in the womb thing, and I would still, well, you said when the child got up, you didn't get up. Are you talking about like during the night when you were pregnant? Is that what you were talking
Yeah.
about?
When I was pregnant during the night and they start getting up and start kicking and getting real active, a lot of times moms, that's when they get up. They'll get up, they'll go to the bathroom, which is fine. They'll get a drink of water. Maybe they'll watch TV. They'll start to read a book, but they get up. And so what happens is the same thing that happens when they're born. Children rule and they run around and get fussy and crazy and they don't have any boundaries. And so for me, this is many years ago, and people will, will have opinions, but you know what? I did this 7 times. So, and so when they would start moving around, I would simply relax. I'd breathe in, breathe out. This is when meditation wasn't a thing. And I would be calm. I would find a center point. I would be still. And then they would, I'd rub my belly and then they'd go back to sleep and they'd be still.
That's
And
amazing.
so the thing is that I learned doing that the first time, and I did it on every single child. Every single child slept through the night. Every single child had very good sleeping habits. But also we have to remember those sleeping times is their growth time. It's their time to rejuvenate, to, let their body chemistry, start to produce and help them heal whatever needs to be healed, become stronger, all those things, which again is good parenting, is taking care of all those needs.
Wow. Okay. So here the plan was we were going to talk about conflict and talk about teenagers, and we are starting with infants. And so this same skill set of good parenting, I mean, is from, well, I would say birth, but we're talking before birth through forever. And some of the things that you mentioned are a couple things I'd like to bring up is one, boundaries and how the boundaries help children feel safe. And that's a very important thing to be able to provide for our children, that feeling of safety and comfort and understanding what are the rules, what are the expectations, because everything is so new, you don't automatically know what's expected. You don't automatically know, like you mentioned, the phone or this or that or the other. But as you gently, without losing your cool, explain, this is what I need, then that creates a safe place and it creates more freedom. And it seems like a paradox that having safe boundaries creates freedom, but it does.
It does.
And so let's continue. So the child is growing. I've got these good patterns going, or maybe I didn't start in the womb and I don't have good parenting skills already lined up. So wherever I am and whatever age my child is in, I mean, today, this is my starting point and I got to jump in. I got to jump in from right here.
Right.
So we got to be patient with ourselves a little bit that maybe I didn't have all of the skills that I could have. But now that I have some more information, I can do things a little bit differently. So, should we work into kind of some of the challenges that we have when we're working with a teenager?
Yeah, I think, and the reason why we're doing this interview is because most parents aren't doing it like I did, right? Um, and I was in the day, I was parenting at a time when ADHD was just introduced, when ADD was just introduced. It wasn't a thing, and now it is the thing. And so keep that in mind. We didn't have those things to give us clearance. We had to figure other stuff out to try and work with that. Or we had to go on this new medication, put our kids on this new medication. And the new medication was unproven. It was a brand new thing. So that just go into that space and realize that space that I was parenting in didn't have some of those other things. But yeah, you come into, the reason I said that is because I think that's why we're here. We're here because we don't do it that way. So how do we do it that way? And the number one thing I think for me that changed me is when I was doing it way back when, number one, I understood I had a responsibility to teach them everything they needed to know that I thought that they needed to know. And that leads me right into the first part of my book, which is the philosophy. What is that? As a mom, what is that thing? What are those things, those 5 things I want my children to come out of this life with, absolutely knowing as my responsibility to teach? That's that one thing.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And we're going to get into those 5 things. Before we move forward, I would like to just clarify one little thing when we're talking about, how things were done then and how things were done now, and that they didn't have ADHD and ADD. It doesn't mean kids didn't have those things. It means we didn't
Absolutely.
have that diagnosis. We didn't
Right.
have that understanding that this child is working from a different place. And so we dealt with challenges without society, maybe other people understanding what it is that we're working with and what we're dealing with. So, yeah. So we have, and as you mentioned, we have different ways of dealing, even with that, with ADHD, and it's like, okay, well, do we medicate? Do we do this? Do we whatever? Um,
Big
so,
question. It's a big question. And it was
mhm,
a struggle for us back then as we all weighed it. The moms all weighed. Do we? Don't we? Yeah.
right.
But anyway, go ahead.
Well, and I think every mom who has a child with that is still going to be doing that weighing, only there's a little bit more data that you
Mhm.
can look at, whereas when things are just getting started, it's quite unknown. All right, so one of my favorite things, and I really hope this golden nugget is something that people take away, that the thing that parents, it's their responsibility, is teaching. And what 5 things do I want my child to have? And I had a friend when my kids were really young who said to me one of the most, I thought it was the weirdest parenting advice I'd ever heard. She said, parenting is the strangest career because it is the one thing where your goal is to become obsolete. And I thought, excuse me, my job is to become
Amen.
obsolete. What on earth are you talking about? And
Truth.
she says, well, when you have an infant, they are 100% dependent on you. They can't do anything for themselves. And by the time they are adults, you want them to be able to do everything on their own.
Mhm.
They
Yes.
don't need me. But
Yes.
if I did a good job, hopefully they still want me and we still have a relationship, we have a connection, but they don't need me. And at first I thought, what? But I pondered on it. It's like, oh boy, is she ever right? So now I have this goal, I have this objective that I am going to raise healthy, beautiful, productive members of society. These children are going to grow up and they're going to be completely autonomous, are going to be able to handle things on their own, including problems. They're going to be able to handle problems on their own. They need a skill set. So, can we briefly go over those 5 things? What do they need to know?
So, well, The 5 things are the things I was saying you choose 3 to 5 things you want your kids to know.
Oh, I get to choose. Haha.
Yes, you
Okay.
choose them. And the reason why you choose them is because I can tell you everything that worked for me. But if you don't have your own belief system, it's you're only going to be a pretender, an imposter of my skills.
Yay. So I don't have to be Karleen in order to be a good
No,
parent?
no. So
Oh,
you,
hooray. I get to be me. Oh,
right?
what a relief. Okay.
Right?
Love that.
It's so good. So, yes, you come up with your overarching belief system. What is it you want that you feel because you're the perfect parent for them? I mean that is my bottom line. You are the perfect parent for them. It doesn't mean you know everything that you need to. I certainly didn't. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't get more education. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't find a support system that can speak truth because your girlfriends won't. Just telling you. They're not going to tell you because they want to be your friend. So the first thing you do is you choose your overarching philosophies. What is it that you ultimately want them to know under your tutelage, under your stewardship? What is it that you feel that they should know by the time they leave your home? Because I too believe you are creating yourself, you're making yourself obsolete in their life, and it becomes a choice. If you honor, respect, and elevate and teach them confidence so that they can be confident, that freedom we were talking about in children, if you create that, you are going to be a light source for them. So you don't worry about that. You teach them what they need to know. So one of my overarching philosophies is my kids will know absolutely that I love them. Now, and I say that it sounds like it's fluff, but think about it this way. Did did you always feel like you were 100% loved? And what would you give for that? And are you willing to give that? So that is an overarching philosophy of mine. I want my kids, no matter what, to feel that they're loved, no matter what. So that's the way that I began looking at, is this a battle I want to fight? Is this a battle? Is this important? How do I communicate that? What does it look like? Because my overarching philosophy is, in the throes of teenagehood, when things are all going sideways, oh, wait a minute, my overarching philosophy is they're going to know I love them. So then you don't get caught up on oh, I can't stand this kid. They're so mean. They're so, whatever, however down that rabbit hole we can go based upon their behavior. You don't do that because your overarching philosophy is they will know they're loved.
I don't think there's any more important lesson. When you're talking about this is what I want them to know, this is what I want to teach them, and knowing that I am loved also gives another message, and that is I am worthy and
Yes.
deserving of love.
And think
When it
about what
comes,
that can do for a teenager who's dealing with peer pressure, who's dealing with puberty and the changes that go through your body, who's dealing with the new hairstyle. And am I good enough? Will I get asked to the dance? When they're going through all that stuff, think about what feeling worthy looks like.
what does it look like? What does it feel like? What
Yeah.
does it require? What do
Yeah.
I have to do? All of those things. It's just no, this is a given. You are loved. Oh, that's such a gorgeous message. I also want to bring up, I really appreciate how you said we are the perfect parent for that child. Because I think every single parent who is honest with themselves knows that they are not a perfect parent because they are not a perfect person. But that does not mean that you can't be the perfect parent for that child. And that even includes our weaknesses and our mistakes,
Absolutely.
especially if we acknowledge our mistakes and we apologize for them. It's like, wow, I didn't do that perfect.
So good.
What a beautiful lesson that can mean. Oh my gosh. I think we could talk for days. So is it okay? Is there anything that you just want to make sure that we cover before we close today? And then I will have your information. So if people want to come get more and they're like, oh my gosh, I need so much more. I've got to grab her book and I need to hear and I need this and I need that. They'll be able to connect with you. But is there anything else you want to make sure we cover today?
No, I think the biggest message is you're the perfect parent for your child. Trust it. Trust that you are the perfect parent. Believe me, nobody's going to love your child the way you do when they step out that door. You are the perfect parent for them. So figure it out. The rest is learning. The fact is that you are. You are. Nobody is going to love your son or daughter the way you do. Nobody is going to want to defend them. Nobody is going to want to take away their pain the way you will want to do it. So, isn't that the best place for them to be? Now it's our job to learn how to hold the space while they feel the pain, while they learn the lesson, while they go through that suffering. Isn't that it? And that will bring them back to confidence and liberty and freedom and all the things. So thank you.
Oh, you're just bringing tears to my eyes. It's so simple and yet so hard. The overarching message I'm hearing is love and trust. Trust yourself, trust them, and love.
So
Love them, love yourself. Just love and trust. And then as far as a skill set, we can help you with that. But the basics you got to bring are love and trust. Oh, Karleen, thank you. This has been amazing.
so good. I have goosebumps. I have goosebumps.
Ooh.
So good. Thank you.
In closing, I'd like to share a quote by Ben Crawford. He said, "When someone doesn't feel valued or heard, their desire to participate in a job or relationship disappears." Today, I invite our listeners to value and hear our teenagers and all of our loved ones. See you next time on Linda's Corner. Thanks for listening. Please share and subscribe to help us reach new listeners. And if you'd like to heal your life from the inside out, there is a free video series at hopeforhealingfoundation.org. Just click on the Free Stuff tab. I also invite you to grab a copy of one of my books, like Crushed, A Journey Through Depression, and You Got This, an action plan to calm fear, anxiety, worry, and stress. See you next time on Linda's Corner.